Hello, you. How was your weekend? One thing you may not know about me is that sometimes on the weekends I actually go and I sell espresso makers. It's a long story. But the point is, one of the things I noticed is that sometimes when people get a new machine and they take it out of the box, they plug it in and it should be set to work perfectly for them. And then they can play around with it. They can push the buttons and add more water or less water to affect the taste of their espresso if they want it stronger or more dilute. But sometimes that messes everything up. And what they have to do is they press both buttons down until the lights blink, and then it goes back to the factory settings. Because the factory settings and the presets are what the manufacturer, how the manufacturer set up the machine so that when you take it out of the box, it's set to work. If you change the factory settings, it's a risk, and it's a risk that might pay off, but it's also a risk that might affect the flavor of your espresso and you don't like it. It might ruin it. So the factory settings, the presets, are the ones that you know, if you're set to those presets, to those default settings, that it's going to function. And so what we've been talking about with purpose and with value, with mattering, they're kind of the presets. They're kind of our factory settings. And so the reason that we're looking at them is because, again, we're trying to figure out, following the clues, what is it that I can examine about what I do know to give me hints about the big questions that I don't know the answers to. So one of the ways that I think makes sense to me is to look at, well, how is it that we all think? What is it that we all want? What are our presets? What are our factory settings? And one of them is that we want to have purpose, and one of them is that we want to matter, and another one is that we want to belong. Now, belonging is kind of a sensitive subject because it's a hard one for a lot of us. I've moved around a lot. I've lived in 5 states and 2 countries. I changed schools 13 times. Even in the last 2 years, my job has changed twice, and my office space has changed 7 times. It's very hard for me to find somewhere where I feel like I belong, like I fit. The funny thing is that because I've been so many different places, it's almost like I can go somewhere, and even though it's brand new, it feels like it fits a little bit. And everywhere fits a little bit, but nothing fits perfectly. So it's hard to sometimes feel like we belong. But belonging is not just something that we find in places. I think a lot of us, more and more, as the world becomes more transitional and people move, and even if you don't move, the people around you move, and we're exposed to so many more different things with the internet and with television and with movies, we know much more about the world than we ever did before. I think finding somewhere to belong, we tend to find our places where we fit more with people than we do in places. And what's interesting is another one of our factory settings is this thing called binary opposition. And psychologists and sociologists have worked on this and figured it out. And basically what it is, binary means 2, opposition means things that are, opposed to one another. And it's this way that our brain works that we sort of separate everything into categories. We like to categorize things that are light and dark and tall and short and fat and thin. In fact, a lot of sociologists use the argument that this has shaped most of our Western civilization, the idea of black versus white with racial tension and male versus female with gender tension. With a lot of religious tension. In fact, most of our wars and battles have been fought over, well, I think we just use them as excuses. Really, it's about this binary opposition, because what it does is, on the positive side, it helps us to develop our identity, because as we grow up, we start to see how we are different from one another, and it helps us understand who we are, that we're separate from one another, and we start being able to develop our own identities. It can be used in a healthy way. It also can be used in an unhealthy way, as we see again in things like racism and war and gender inequality and all of the religious battles that we see going on. We find reasons to say we are us and you are them, and so we can't get along and we have to stay separate. But that also plays into belonging, because it gives us the idea of we want to fit into an us, that there's an idea of us, that maybe that there's somewhere where I fit. And it's not just this big psychological concept, it's actually something that's very personal. Intellectually, if we look at, our chocolate and vanilla thinking and feeling, intellectually we see it as the binary opposition. But as we feel about it, we want to be somewhere where we fit. We want to be with people who know us and value us, and that we're safe. Because if someone values us without knowing us, it seems a little inauthentic. Like they're just being really nice, but they don't know who we really are. And if someone really knows us and doesn't value us, well, isn't that our greatest fear? That someone would really finally know me and then not accept what they see? Then we wouldn't be safe. And belonging, feeling like we're home, whether it's with our actual family, whether it's with a family of friends, whether it's with a group of people that we've just gathered, like the show Cheers, where everybody knows your name. It's this sense of I fit somewhere. I matter, and the people around me think that I matter as well. We want to be somewhere where our core identities resonate with one another, and we can celebrate the parts of us that are the negotiable identities. We want to be somewhere where we fit, where we can be a little bit different, but we still feel like we have things that are in common with one another. And the scary thing I think that we do sometimes is we don't present all of who we are because we're afraid that people will reject that. And so we only share little bits of who we are, because if little bits of who we are rejected, it's not as painful as if someone rejected all of us. But at the end of the day, we all want to be accepted. We want to be told it's okay if you're different. You matter and you belong with us. You're a part of us. It's a factory setting that I think says a lot about who we are, and what we want, and why is it that we want to belong? Why does that matter to us? Why does it matter if people get me, if I get to be surrounded by people who understand me, who know me, and who value me? A place where I'm safe. Do you feel like you have a place where you belong? Do you feel like you have a place where you fit? Are there people around you that make you feel that way? And if there aren't, does it hurt? Because if it hurts, then it says something about who we are, because it feels like something's missing. So if that thing is missing, where do we find it? It's just another clue as we're on our search for whatever's out there, whatever's real, whatever's legit, whatever's the answer to the mystery of who we are and why we are. Why is it important to us that we matter? What is it that's more than just the binary opposition that says I have an in-group and an out-group and I fit into this group? We can intellectually acknowledge it, but I think all of us will admit that it's something that really affects us emotionally. So I hope you have a place where you feel like you fit. We're going to talk about other stuff this week, so I hope you're doing well. I love you, and have a great day, and I'll see you on Wednesday.